Welcome to the From Harm to Healing podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jones, and I'm a therapist who runs the From Harm to Healing treatment program, an online program for men who have engaged in infidelity or compulsive sexual behaviors within the context of an intimate relationship. I started this podcast to illuminate some of the common blind spots within the treatment fields for compulsive sexual behavior or sex addiction through the lens of the deceptive sexuality trauma model. I hope you find this resource enlightening, particularly if you're somebody navigating the pain of betrayal and deception for yourself. Thank you for listening to the From Harm to Healing podcast. In the previous episode, I brought you the first part of a conversation I had with a very important colleague of mine, Trish Haight, and today's episode will be the second part of that conversation, continuing our discussion around objectification, humanization, what it is to move from first order to second order change, and really going into some personal vulnerability for both of us as well, looking at the work itself and its importance to us, why we are so passionate about it. So I hope you enjoy this second part of our conversation together. And please remember that, as with the previous episode, I will put a link to Trish's website, her Instagram, for anyone that's interested in connecting with her and finding out more.
So we have to land in that place of truth-telling, building intimacy and integrating it as whole, becoming more human, less objectified, you know?
As we know, everything in this model kind of has an image or a metaphor or something for us to kind of tether to. And I was thinking, as you were describing these stages of relationship, when it's first happening, when the covert secret sexual basement is building, we have this idea, don't we, that the partner doesn't know it's there, but the fumes are escaping from it and are poisoning her, are poisoning the relationship, are poisoning the people in the home above. And so you can just, as you were describing it, I had that picture in my mind of, through those stages you're describing, how is the basement impacting all of those stages? How is it growing? How is it poisoning? And then what you said about then when you're working with couples, it's almost, if I understood you correctly, you're almost having to redo that cycle, like start at the beginning, build something new. And then I think of the great challenges of, I might have to recalibrate this in my mind, but I don't know if it's the second or third stage. You have the coming together and then the natural, like, giving space to each other. Very, very difficult when we're rebuilding after broken trust, hypervigilance, hyperarousal in the nervous system, that idea of being tethered to the relationship, but with space and two individuals in the relationship. Very, very challenging. And I'm guessing for the relationship, I might be making a jump ahead. This is where we're thinking from that first level to second level again. What does second order, second level change look like?
Second order. Yeah, exactly. What does that look like? Wow, I could bounce off so many things there, as well as what you said. I want to go back to the fumes that you're talking about, that we talk about. You know, I know you've heard me do the sound of DST, and I'm just going to do the covert phase. Is like this roaring hum of high octane. It's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. And that's what's under the floorboards of the home, right? Where the partner is walking on, and she can't even understand what's happening below. She doesn't even think about that because of all the manipulation, all the deflection, etc. But what's actually happening, that we know from this model and from our deeper work that we do on our own as well, is there is a deep erosion happening, which is creating a form of dehumanization already that she's not aware of. So when the two worlds collide, that fragmentation is going to be really big, because that's where she's like, I wasn't human, And so part of the model of helping the couple heal the injured relationship, truly get into coupleship, actually, would be, how do I create a space for them to land in stabilizing as they see they are two individuals that are fragmenting, coming into that we space and not getting lost Because if we don't help them there, it's going to continue to go back to a split. We have to help them stabilize. So taking in stage 2 of the healing model, the stages of healing in this model, the stabilization is key. How do we help them stabilize and tolerate especially when they are fragmenting and have been fragmented? And how do we help them quell the nervous system so they both can come to center and develop a co-regulation and not jump off the teeter-totter of relationship and leave the other slammed to the floor, no matter who? Because we help them create this space of I often hear when injured relationships call me to do individualized intensives, they'll call me and they'll say, we're all in. And I have an assessment with them to see if that's true. And you can truly tell, like you were naming, that second order change, if they're actually ready to do this work, that you can feel a vibration in them, that they are more in alignment than in that cracked vertebrae of the 6 systems of meaning. Their thoughts are more in alignment. Their emotions are more in alignment. Their sense of self is more in alignment. Again, not perfect. Their sense of abuse and being an abuser or being abused is more in alignment. Their sense of being in relationship to the world and others is more in alignment. Their sense of meaning is more in alignment. That's what I'm tuning into in that moment in order to do this work. Because if they have a broken spine, I can't tend to the injured relationship work. They have to do that humanization work enough in order to humanize the injured relationship. And I have to help the partner impacted understand that. Because again, she's desperate to have what she thought she had, which was safety. It's that reality ego fragmentation where when it crashed through, when the octane blew up her life, and his life, right? Blew up everything. She has to make sense of that in that moment, because now she's like, wait, what's real? What's not? Let me cling to this. She's clinging and then pushing away and then clinging and then pushing away. She's feeling less human. We have to help her feel human enough in order to do that work and not go back and forth. Same goes with him, like you're naming. We have to let him feel the self-contact in order to hold her in his heart and say, I see you and I can hold you in my heart to do this work. And I help them hold each other in the heart, because the partner is in that reality ego fragmentation. She'll hold in the heart and then she gets scared and wants to shatter her heart again. She creates that almost dehumanization of him again and of her.
Yeah, I'm thinking now of some of that deeper work, the sort of stage 3 metabolization work for the coupleship, for the injured relationship. So we talk about the 22 rooms, and many people will be familiar with the idea of the 22 rooms in this model. Really a metaphor that really expands, outlines the traumatic impacts, the great traumatic impacts of deceptive sexuality. It's actually probably my single favorite work to do with this model in this field, is working with couples, working with the relationship, going through those rooms. But to your point, there's so much that needs to be in place to be able to do that work. So I think of it as the most profoundly beautiful healing work that I can do. But again, the ability for the abuser, for the man I work with, to be able to sit and hear her tell her story through the context of those rooms, to sit in those rooms. And then for her to be able to show up often in that sort of global high activation, but to have space to be able to come down in that regulating environment, to, stealing your terms here, the emotional highway. I'm really thinking of that now in the terms of what you're saying. That's the humanization, right? He is grounded enough. He is in enough self-contact to be able to sit with her story, be a container. So I actually just did a podcast episode on this holding and healing idea. The task for the abuser is to get to that position, all of that work, all of that self-contact, where you can truly hold the partner, hold the injuries to the relationship in that moment, be a co-regulating presence so that she can tell her story. So profoundly healing work, but work that requires two humans, two fully realized human beings in the room who are able to humanize each other in those moments. It just really ties together so much of what we're talking about here, I think.
I love how you bring in the partner's voice and how to help the person who caused the harm to sit with her sharing the upsurge of the impacts of the room and how deep that goes when she's lifting it out, and it can come really fast to the person who's receiving it, and how to help them be that mountain. From this model, we say, do your mountain work so that you can really stay steady in that and not leave her, and continue to see her as human, and hold her heart that is breaking apart. Like even the imagery of that, how do I hold someone's heart in my hands, which is, the hands are the extension of the heart. So how do I hold them in my heart as they're sharing and not lose myself, And as the partner moves through those 22 rooms, and we can say those rooms could even be more, because every time we enter the room, more unpacks from each room, right? We see a theme of injustice throughout every room, so that also is part of what she's sharing, the injustice that has happened inside of her and in her life. And so if he can actually be steady and be that mountain for her and really listen, teach them deep listening, what it's like to deeply listen, it's such a beautiful moment of connection. And we empower them to do more. We create an agency in the relationship to continue to do this, because then they're going to feel, she's going to feel held. He's going to feel the capacity to hold, but also to hold himself and all that's going on without shame diving. So we want to really create this capacity for, I'm with you and I'm with myself at the same time. I am human and you are human. And these both exist at the same time. We can connect here at the same time. She might feel less human, but he's holding more humanity in that moment, because she's lifting all that pain and agony and anguish. And she might be in that tornado experience of just a fury, a storm of sorts. And he needs to hold steady so that as she lifts it out, that impact out, she can start to settle. And if we teach them to really tune into the impact, and we've named this before, tune in the impact versus chase the content. The content's going to cause more objectification and dehumanization. It's not going to help healing. If they are constantly caught in the whirring of the content, they are dragging each other around. They're in battle with themselves and each other. But if we help them slow down, become more embodied, make self-contact, allow the pause to be what it is, not to emotionally colonize somebody, to jump in and take over the emotional space, but to hold space, sit back in the self, trust that what is happening is meant to be happening in this moment. The pausing, the sorrow, the grieving, the pain, the agony, also the lift that can happen. So going back to what you named earlier, the shadow and light are happening at the same time when we sit long enough in this. That's what it is to be human. We sit with our whole selves. We are shadow, we are light. What we choose to feed is what makes us human, more human with another person. If you choose to feed the shadow, you are not with another person. Unless they too are choosing to feed a shadow, then you meet another shadow and you're just shadow living. That's part of the secret sexual basement. Shadow living.
And I'm thinking now about, we've mentioned this idea of first order, second order change, and it applies to all three plates. It applies to the abuser, to the partner, to the relationship. So even you talking about content versus impact, the content is crucial. The content is required. Disclosure is required. Knowledge is required. And I'm thinking of that almost like the first order stuff. We need to understand the content and its impact on us. And then, as we're saying, if we maybe gets a bit confusing now, I don't want to overlap too many ideas, but if we think of the stages of recovery in this model, the stage 3, the metabolization, the grieving, telling of the story, metabolizing, digesting the story. That's that second order, and that is about impact of the content, impact of the story, not just the story itself and the content, the information, what happened. And for this to work, to be able to do this kind of relational healing work, we've used this term humanizing or humanization of both people. But we could think again about this first, second order idea. So I'm thinking now, kind of transitioning to the men I work with, what is first order change? What is second order change? If we're saying the second order change is required to be able to really do this holding, healing work. And I think it really links to this objectification idea, because if we think first order, we could say, okay, I'm going to stop acting out. So I'm not going to go into the secret basement anymore. I'm not acting out. I'm maybe going to stop lying. I'm going to start following boundaries. All of these really good things, foundational, critical things. But I can still be doing those things and objectifying myself. I can be a needless, wantless, opinionless object who happens to be good at following boundaries and not acting out anymore. So a profoundly important step, but not enough, still possibly an object in that. And then I think of second order for the men I work with as those other ideas we've talked about, self-contact. Am I getting to know myself? Am I growing in intimacy with myself? Can I use my voice authentically, accurately? Am I growing in integrity, intimacy, integration, those things we talked about? So that's where, yes, I'm building on this foundation of the reduction in the compulsive entitled sexuality or sobriety, whatever term we want to use, reduction in the integrity abuse, increase in the attending skills, but that deeper second order change that allows me to really sit with my partner's story, to really hold it, for her to be able to tell her story, which in many ways is her holding her mirror up to my shame, to the harm I've caused, for me to be able to look in that mirror without shutting down, without the defenses pulling me away. So that's how I think of the second order change for the men I work with. I'd love to hear you talk about, for the work you do as well, maybe how you see that.
Yeah, let me build on that a little bit. When you mentioned the metabolization, the process of lifting out the impact, that is the beginning of second order change. It's the beginning. What a beautiful place to land when we start to really name what's internally causing us the most suffering. What has happened inside of us, and that creates the shift it creates a pathway actually to a deeper understanding, which is, where did I live with my values and my morals? Because that second order changes. I am transforming my relationship to that. I am making a deep shift of change inside of me that says, my values and morals are this. It's not just like you named, which is, I'm doing sobriety, I'm above the water, etc. It's that depth of what it is to be human and making contact, again, breathing life into the part of you that got left behind. You mentioned, moving from, I'm going to say it this way, moving from first order change to second order change is a pivotal moment. It's like it holds a great tension in between, kind of like when I talk about moving from an old story to a new story. There's a tension in between because the old story is so practiced. The new story isn't yet practiced enough. The old story is going to grab you and pull you back. Same with first order and second order change. First order change is so practiced. Got it, got it, got it. In today's world, we kind of are out there in the world being less human, all of us. We are constantly checking the box. Got it, got it. We have a task list, right? However, when we start understanding, how do I slow that down and actually become self-actualized, Maslow's term, right? Or become more human, self-contact, Omar, and all of us who talk about really making contact with our deepest innermost self and really honoring and cherishing that part. That's so unfamiliar. We don't take the time to do that. We're busy doing first order work. But if we actually give ourselves permission to feel the tension in between those two through the metabolization that you're mentioning, that stage 3, the beginning of what it feels like to lift something out, disperse it or discharge its hold on us so we can feel more space inside. Now we have more space to actually land in our value and belief systems at a very deep level, and give ourselves permission to make a choice, have agency. If we don't do that, if we just do first order change and we start only doing it for the other, and we don't think about that tension point that is natural, you're not just going to go, I'm going to move from first order change to second order change and be perfect at it. No, you're going to go back and forth until you trust second order change. If we don't help them sit in that discomfort again, there's going to be resentment building, right? I'm sticking with the abuser right now with you before I speak to the partner impacted, right? Just to let you know, I haven't forgotten how you were taking me to the partner. I just want to make sense of that tension that remains in that person, the abuser who's been lost for years. Now, the intimate partner, like you were naming earlier, she had a sense of being human, and she held him in his humanity. So she was already feeling her values and morals and beliefs in a certain way. And she thought he too was holding those same morals and beliefs. They had a shared value system. This is why it's a moral injury, right? She believed there was deep second order work happening because it's a constant conscious state we remain in if we are doing self-actualization or self-contact. We're constantly looking and feeling into our values and beliefs. We're doing that. We're taking the pulse of that. We're conscious. It's not a first order decision. These are my values. Here's my list. Check, check, check. No, these are my values. Now think of the intimate partner again, who had thought that was happening. However, she finds out, oh my gosh, no, she goes back to first order. It's not safe to be in second order. That shattered, that obliterated for her because it was so connected to him. She believed it was an us, a we space. So going back to the we had something. We had space here with each other. We had differentiation too, because, we had opinions and perspectives, and I believed you could hold mine and I could hold yours. And we were this we had a value system, a belief system that was aligned. She obliterates that. She goes up into first order. And that's where we see a lot of the first order race. Check, check, check. And then she applies it to him. Check, 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 check.
And it's so easy to get stuck in that place, potentially for a long, long time.
Yes. And we have to help them understand that and help them come down out of it, help untangle that, because it's going so fast. It's all about survival. That first order is check, 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 check. It's hyperstate. It can also be the hypo state where someone just collapses into, you'll see the abuser can collapse into a dorsal vagal shutdown, which is a complete numbing or freeze state, where they often can fall asleep in conversation when someone is sharing the impact of what's happened to them. That's the polyvagal system, right? That's the drop into, I can't bear this. They go away from self into a hypo state. Yeah. And we see the partner do that as well. It can go either way. Again, our hope for them and our guidance for them is, how do we help them come to center with all this fragmentation? How do we create a central pedal experience, which is to the center of the flower? How do we help them instead of the constant flower opening and all the petals blowing apart? Central fugue, right? It goes out. We want to help them come into the center of themselves so they can come into the center of the relational space and the injury in it, and then help them stay there long enough, like you were mentioning earlier, in that we state, while starting to open up a little more space, a little more breathing room. Because if they stay so tightly together in the we, there's going to be resentment building. We have to help them catch their breath. She is gripping. She's gripping. And sometimes if she sees him drop into the bottom of him and into the under the water, like in level 6, complex trauma shaping, she's going to get angry because she's going to point to level 1 and 2, which is, here's what's happening now. And then he might say something like, I don't even feel heard. And she's going to go, you haven't heard me. It becomes this battle state. So if we don't help them come out of that deep entanglement of we that happens right after um, the shattering sometimes, and then the fragmentation, then a constant gripping onto each other, especially her onto him, because she's desperate to have her reality. And he, too, sometimes is gripping onto her because he's desperate for her not to abandon. If we don't help them come out of that and actually go, again, make a landing, they're not going to get into that second order. They're going to remain in first order where they're gripping and they're checking the boxes constantly. They're not going to humanize. They're going to keep objectifying each other in relationship. And then the relationship becomes, as I was mentioning in another podcast, the boober state. It, but I also call it because they become two objects in relationship.
Yeah, I can almost picture it like I used that phrase earlier when he becomes the needless, wantless, kind of sober, boundary following, because it's like I don't dare bring any of me of the deeper stuff into the relationship and risk rocking the boat and risk causing a fracture. And so the result is I'm still wearing a mask. I'm still an object. I'm an object in some recovery, but I'm still an object. And then, as you said, for the partner, what I perceive so often is that part of the trauma response, part of the safety seeking, understandably, is significant boundaries and some safety coming from having some control, because I now recognize that my spouse, my husband, my partner was actually out of control this whole time, and I maybe didn't even realize. And so again, there's a dynamic there where he is kind of shrinking and not able to give her what she really needs. And there's this mutual stuckness happening, again, as we're naming. So hard to break through. And again, that it idea.
Yeah, exactly. And just holding the partner so gently right now is, she becomes such an it that she is in agony and deep, 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 deep anguish and suffering because she never wanted the role of setting those hard boundaries, becoming so altered within herself, becoming an object far away from the self. So again, becoming an object is I am so far from me. I don't know how to come back to me. And the dynamic that you're naming is he is so fearful of expressing a need because oftentimes what's set up is you don't have needs. Because there's two it's here and we have to help them. One thing I do is to help the injured relationship, specifically the partner, would be as he is sharing with her something from his heart and he's fumbling or whatever, and he's letting her know something. Sometimes you'll see the not let it in experience where she just clamps up her heart. She just puts the prison around her heart and she swallows the key, that there's no way out. And then other times I want to help her find that key to let herself out of the prison and see if she can let something in and then notice what that feels like. I think a lot of times when she can land and find that key, whatever that is for her, what is the key that can unlock her? And it usually relates to, I trust me. It's not about I trust him. I trust me. She's now coming together online with her gut brain. So her mind, heart, and gut and soul are all in alignment. That's when she can truly start to open her heart. And again, it's not going to remain perfectly because one minute she's going to let it in, next minute she's going to shove it out. That's part of the process. And if we can help them, as you were naming earlier, this is not a short process. This is a long process. It's not a cookie cutter experience. It's a complex individual experience. We can give people certain landing points to understand, but when they land in whatever it is for their injured relationship or their individuation of it, they have a complex ocean themselves that they're swimming through. And we have to help them swim. We have to help them metabolize so that they can get to stage 4 and 5, which is that beautiful space of reconstruction, reparation, reclamation, rebound, re-energizing, so that it then pushes them, forward into stage 5, which is all about, we have new air here in ourselves, in our relationship. We are fuller. capacity here. We are in a state of expansion, energetic shifts towards new meaning, evolution. I mean, there's so many beautiful places that you can go, but we cannot leave the first stages of healing. Otherwise, it's a bypass. You can't just jump to that. It's like, whoa, then you're going to have a bunch of trauma again happen if you do not take your time and pause throughout the entirety of what is actually happening as it relates to being in a state of objectification and dehumanization for so long, and now also handing that to another person who now feels that. If we don't help them tap into that and the sorrow of that, they are not going to arrive in that place of new space inside, feeling more alive, more whole, having capacity for more intimacy, really truth-telling with each other. Even a couple that hasn't been in this trauma don't often even arrive here. I say this is a moment that gives you an opportunity for transformation. It truly is. Through these wounds, we actually have an opportunity because we cannot take away the wound. It happened. No matter how far back it goes to level 6 in the iceberg from that complex trauma shaping from very young, we cannot change that. We can only raise consciousness at the break of the water and create change, choose to change through self-contact, through humanizing.
Yeah, through integrating the story. So back to the 3 I's: integrity, intimacy, integration.
You know, Chris, I think about, I have this image of the elephant that I don't know if I shared this story with you too, but when I was in my somatic studies back in the day, third year study, I was off in this 6-day, our last 6-day immersion training. And there was a moment that I had this image as I was sitting there of an elephant just came into my mind, and it just dropped through me all the way through my body, and it landed in the earth of me. And I saw this dust just billow up around me and around the elephant. And then when the dust settled, the gaze of the elephant's eyes were such wisdom, so much wisdom in there. And it was like this moment of self-contact at a very deep level that we invite our wisdom to carry us forward, is how I like to name that. And so with my model, my program, Here I Am Becoming, right, has been since way back for me, since grad school. I've always used that kind of phraseology, here I am becoming, here I am becoming. That just is about the elephant, really transforming from being something, a secret, right, an object, unfolding, right? Yeah. And in that landing point, right? My 4 landing points are landing, restoring, rising, becoming, which pairs well with the 5 stages, right, of this model. But the landing is that moment we land in the abuse, victim, trauma, existing reality, which includes I was an object and I created objectification in my life to survive. I was dehumanizing myself. Therefore, I created dehumanization in my life. Or I was human and then someone brought dehumanization into my life. So that shattering, that landing point is really important. Where we steady it, we land there. That would be stage 1 and 2. We name and stabilize. Then we hit restore, which is restoration, which is all about metabolization, integration, reforming, transforming. There's this beautiful rhythm of change that's starting to happen, like the invitation to second order change, which brings us, which is stage 3 in the model, metabolization. And then we move into rising, which is all about that I have landed in second order change. I can feel that. I am rising. It's the look in the elephant's eye. There I am, there we are. We see each other in the wisdom, and that's where we rise from a place of humanity and wisdom, listening to the other person's wisdom to help carry us into that thriving or that becoming space. I mean, which is stage 4 and 5. Those rising and becoming are all about that rhythm of forward movement, you know? Pretty powerful humanizing model that speaks truth. And then we bring ourselves into this model, who we each are in our complexity, how we make self-contact with ourselves, both personal and professional. And I feel so honored to sit here with you. I think we have a similar rhythm. You know, we like to chew on things, we like to drop it in and share it and see what the other does with it. That's a beautiful, intimate connection with another person where we hear each other at that level. We appreciate, we cherish the moment we have with each other, you know? I love it. I just love it. I keep saying, because I'm like,
You get it right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the opposite of objectification. It's humanization, a genuine curiosity about each other's internal worlds, each other's perception of things. I'm not just learning cognitive information from you. I am sat in connection with you. And that idea of, you talked about your program, Here I Am Becoming. That's just so hopeful. That's so positive because, again, taking it back to this, what does real deeper change look like? If I applied that to the work I do, to my program with men, it's not here I am stopping acting out. That's a great start, but that's a pretty negative, uninspiring vision of recovery. Whereas to use some of the terms we've already used, here I am becoming a man of integrity, intimacy, integration. Here I am becoming a man who uses his voice authentically.
Yeah.
Here I am becoming a man who is honest, loving, and whole. That's another thing Omar and I talked about with healthy masculinity. So it's not just here I am, I'm an abuser, my partner's a victim, and that's it. That's a really important thing to name. But also there's more than that. Here we are becoming. Here the relationship is becoming. A big part of why this model always resonated with me, a sobriety model is very uninspiring to me. If it's just get sober and see what happens from there. Very, very uninspiring. So just lovely to hear you embody that in your program, in your work, in everything you've said today, really.
Yeah. But also you too, just like your naming is, here I am becoming, gives us permission to shift and change, right? The sobriety doesn't give us permission to shift and change. It keeps us in first order. Here I am becoming says, I can leave my fragmented self if I process it. I don't need to sit there in it forever. I can name it, get to know it, metabolize it, be accountable for the choices I made in life. And I can move from that. Like, now we're going to shower each other for a minute. I love your podcast name, From Harm to Healing, because you are naming that trajectory. You're giving someone permission. So they give themselves permission so that they allow themselves to shift instead of force themselves. No one ever wanted this trajectory. They didn't want this handed to them. However, the way we hold it for them and we give them permission to hold the wholeness of it, the opportunity, right, to shift. It's a painful opportunity, a devastating opportunity for everyone. But again, falling back into here I am becoming, when we get to the injured relationship, it's here we are becoming. Powerful. I mean, I even feel like I'm going to cry even saying that right now. I feel like a well of tears coming up because it's so profound to witness someone doing that. If we can teach each part of the coupleship to see each other's profound shifting and shaping and truly feel it because it's second order, we are that empathic witness. What a gift to see someone fill up in themselves with them. I mean, it's powerful. Their cells light up, It's exciting. It's truly emotional and exciting. So I go back to, if I wrote a book, my book would be, my name was Object, and then I unfolded.
Wow. Yeah. And to your point, the things that lead to unfolding, that lead to facing the shadow, doing this kind of work, are uncomfortable things. I wouldn't wish deceptive sexuality and all of these things on anybody. We know the devastating impact. But if and when that happens, there is still the possibility of here I am becoming, here I am growing. moving forward.
And from harm to healing. I mean, that is such a profound statement. It's, again, it's encouraging them. They can move from a state of harm towards healing if they truly invest themselves, they roll up their sleeves, they dig in, they hear the truth, they can receive the truth of what's happened. Both entities, both the partner, the intimate partner, the victim of this type of abuse, and the abuser, right? If they can actually invite themselves, invest there will be a healing. It's a given. It truly is. Stay steady. You know, Omar used to always say to me, keep on, stay steady, those kinds of things, you know, which is really important because our world and other thoughts can pull us out of it so fast. It's kind of why we do the breath, right? The approach, transition, conditioned breath, the breath from ordinary to extraordinary. We're creating a sacred cocoon is what I call it, right? Around the truth of what we're speaking to, which is about the preciousness of what it is to be human, the delicate process of helping someone arrive there, the untangling of fragmenting nervous systems into co-regulating nervous systems. I mean, wow, we are truly blessed to be in the position we're in to help others, especially because I can feel our hearts are very similar. We're not going to take over another's heart. We're going to hold space for another's heart to be whatever it is in that moment and help them, you know, bloom the space of their heart.
We're both getting emotional now. We're just drawing it out of each other. It's just so beautiful what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. We do have that coming in genuine into a space. We're not about just talking. We're about listening, deep listening.
And I think my hope would be that hearing this, again, my lens is so often shifting back to the men I work with and the program I run and the work I do. And like, I hope this is really inspiring. Like, maybe it's uncomfortable for people hearing this as well, but I hope there's a vision for within masculinity, within healthy masculinity, but this kind of connection.
Yeah.
The kind of feelings that come up, the idea of being a co-regulating presence, being an agent of healing, using the voice as an instrument for healing, where it has been used as an instrument for harm. It's so moving to me, those ideas, in a personal sense, in a clinical sense, in a global sense. And I so hope that many men listening to this, everyone really that listens to this, hears that as a really profoundly inspiring thing.
I do too. I really do, because you and I hold both things, right? It's like we have to help them embody it rather than go into old patterns of being a hero, being a rescuer, you know, getting that inflated hit. We want to help them feel a softer side of themselves, a vulnerability in themselves that can show up and also hold another person's healing without losing themselves. So we have to help them quell the need to inflate, bring them into the mix more, and the partner as well, to truly receive that they're coming from a vulnerability and help her open up to that hope that something can shift in her. And if she chooses the relationship, in the relationship, and in him, you know, and not to help her, not to get into a malignant hope, which is blinding, you know, help her stay in the steadiness of change, the river of change that's happening in each of them, and how they can create that co-regulation river together in vulnerability. Yeah. Truly inspiring.
I'm always inspired when I have these conversations. Obviously, I've been very blessed. The podcast started. I did a lot of my own episodes, but to have these conversations with Omar, with yourself, and to have been mentored by both of you as well. So always inspired. And I think it shows the power of the work. And in some ways, the connection that developed through training in this model and things, even I think the emotion that comes up for both of us, that came up today as we spoke about these things. And I think it just, thinking again about this idea of humanizing and honoring, I see those two words as so close together. And I think those feelings coming up, the weight of this conversation really honors the weight of deceptive sexuality trauma, the story of the secret sexual basement. I think how much we care about this work, care about the clients, care about the message, the model. So I think there's just something profoundly honoring about these conversations. I feel extremely honored to have had you to talk to again. I feel like I always learn, feel like I grow. And I think part of this model as well, again, coming back to this humanizing, here I am becoming. Omar always focused on this idea of professional ego development. Who are you as a professional? It's not how can you be like me? It's who are you going to be in this space? How are you going to find your voice in this space? So in many ways, we're doing our own version of what we're doing with clients anyways. We could go on for ages. I could shower you with more and more praise. We could probably go on all sorts of different tangents, but I think for today, we're coming to the end of our time, and I would love to have more of these conversations. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, and then we can maybe close the extraordinary space we've shared today.
Well, I am just as thrilled and emotional as you are about these sharing moments that we have together. It's just so enlivening, and it reminds me of who I am as a person, but also who I am as a professional. And I am honored that you find me to be a mentor. I also find you as someone I am learning with and learning from constantly. And I feel it's such a gift at what you have started here for all those who are desperate to hear this information. They're desperate to hear truth. They're desperate to hear and see themselves in what we are sharing. It gives them a path and a hope that someone is speaking truth to their heart and what they've been feeling all this time. I'm going to share something with you, but I can't share the exact thing. So I know that sounds weird, kind of lead in. But I know I rewrote the Serenity Prayer. And it's called my rewritten Serenity Prayer. And it's very long. And the first words are, my dearest heart. And it goes through this whole thing. And it's a beautiful Serenity Prayer. And it's done to a reel. So you can see the reel on my website. If you can't get Instagram, you can actually see the reel and listen to me recite it. Or you can go to my website and you can read the blog about how I wrote it. But the reason I'm telling you this is because someone else came upon the rewritten Serenity Prayer. And this is exciting. I can't tell you who she is or whatever yet. She's an author and a songwriter. And she wrote a song, and now I'm going to be signed as the co-writer, and she's using the Here I Am Becoming and my rewritten Serenity Prayer, and she created this amazing song, and she sent me 2 versions, and I got to choose which version she's putting on her next album. So I am thrilled, and when I first heard it, talk about emotion, somebody who deeply listens to you and then reflects back to you. I'm going to get emotional, I can see. I was sobbing because she tapped into herself and therefore could tap into me. And I think that's what we're talking about here, is taking the time to deeply listen to somebody and reflect back that you see them. And it is an emotional vein. And I think you and I do that with each other. That's why emotion keeps popping in here. Like sometimes we're not naming there's emotion because we can see each other, and I can see you're hitting some emotion and you can see that in me, I think. What a gift. What a gift, what an inspiration, what a path to blooming our personal and professional selves, you know?
The power, just how powerful it is to feel heard and seen. Like such simple words, to be heard, to be seen,
Yeah.
but so profoundly powerful. And please remember me when you're really famous and you've got all your songwriting credits and all of that.
This is a one-off, but man, I feel so honored by that. I mean, just truly like, wow, you know? But anyway, I feel honored by this, and I'm in a true state of wow and awe here. And I can't wait to do more with you as we find our time. And because it's for us, but it's also for all those hungry for truth, so that they can create that second order change and create a human self fully realized on the journey of evolution, you know? I would love to take us into bringing this container. I just saw you wipe a tear away.
Yes, you did.
I love that. We are touched at the heart. You know, think about that. Each tear that we hold is someone else's pain we're holding. It's their tears we're holding them in our hearts so that they can shift them. So we do that for each other as well.
Absolutely. It is a powerful thing. Simple, but incredibly powerful.
Yeah. I'm with you. I hope this touches those listeners out there. I hope somehow it makes sense to them, you know, that our voices and our hearts and our knowledge, our wisdom, I'm going to say this, expertise in the model and how we pair it with our humble self is really important. So should we bring it close? Because you and I could go on, you know?
Yeah, I think I need to gather myself. I think we need to bring the extraordinary space to a close. But just, I also hope that, I guess there's a sense of vulnerability, even in both of us having this conversation.
Yeah.
Vulnerability within the safe container.
Yeah.
And yet knowing that many people are going to listen to this. And so again, I hope that is inspiring. It's maybe even a model of what connection, of what using the voice, two people authentically using their voices with genuine curiosity and care for each other.
Exactly.
How moving that is.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you're bringing that up too, because they're listening to the vulnerability and they're also hearing what we're saying and they're becoming more vulnerable. So I hope that they create a container for themselves. Once this is over, maybe they can take a breath with us right now and create a closure to it, put it safely so they're not flailing with the information. Should we do that?
Yeah, please.
All right. I invite you to close your eyes. Holding and honoring our time together and all that we moved through and holding all those others that are listening and those that haven't even found this place yet to hear this, holding them carefully. Taking this space, this extraordinary, rich, courageous space, and holding that carefully. Inhale deeply. Exhale, settle. And taking a beautiful cocoon or container of whatever image comes to you and putting it around this for safekeeping, around you and your vulnerability, around this information and what might be stirring inside of you, what might be settling, what might be lighting up, what emotions might be moving. Gently holding this part of you, take an inhale and secure it. And then inhale deeply. Exhale, clear the space.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the From Harm to Healing podcast. If you'd like to find out more information about the deceptive sexuality trauma model itself, you can visit minwallamodel.com. If you're interested in the services that I offer, in particular the From Harm to Healing treatment program, please visit chrisjonestherapy.co.uk.